today we've got something quite special. I'm really excited about this one. Tell us what we're drinking today, Kieran.
Right, so we've got a Springbank, distilled 1995. Let me just double check. Yep, 1995, bottled 2022. Oof. So you're talking 26, 27-year-old. Cracking stuff. It's also bottled by Samaroli, the sort of world-renowned Italian importers.
Yeah, this is exciting. This is something, Samaroli, again, it's not something we see a lot of in Scotland, really. Some of the Samarolis I've got to taste. I just love the history and the story of the bottler. The fact that Mr. Samaroli was able to get basically the pick of the cask that he wanted back in the day. And he was also one of the first to do it in Europe, to get a really old-school, traditional bottler with Springbank. I can't believe it. This is like...
I think he was a lucky guy being able to do what he did for so long.
So why should we be excited about Springbank? I think it's, the authenticity and the history and the story. But you tell me, what do you think?
All of the above, really. The fact that Campbeltown, for once upon a time, was like the whiskey capital of Scotland. For such a small town, had so many distilleries.
Almost of the world as well, right? I mean, I think they had maybe like 20 distilleries at one point.
Yeah, it's like you could throw a stone and hit a distillery in the
Bonkers.
town. It was well, I say it was if I was there myself. It was a wee while before I was born. But nowadays there's only 3 still going. And Springbank's very much the sort of jewel in the crown of the town. It's Springbank, and all the whiskey they make is got sort of cult status to it. I think if you say Springbank to anyone who's into their whiskey, 9 times out of 10 you'll see their eyes light up a wee bit, spark something inside of them.
I think it's everybody who's, a lot of people that are whiskey people have a Springbank story.
Yeah.
It's my biggest weakness. I've never been to Campbeltown. My understanding is as well, and I don't mind saying it, I don't think it's the most glamorous place in Scotland, down the Qatar Peninsula, but to go and see Springbank is something I just have to do. And obviously they do so many variations of whiskey down there now as well. So I'm assuming this will be a traditional Springbank, so maybe something that's kind of lightly peated in style. But obviously now they do Hazelburn and Kilkerran as well.
Yeah, I think what you can expect from Springbank is usually oily, briny, kind of salty, and then it generally takes to like the cask influence really, really well. Whatever they're doing with their spirit down there seems to work wonders.
Yeah, I imagine there's almost like a beautiful inconsistency with Springbank. And this is maybe somebody, I've not had a lot of Springbank really, but the idea that they're able to do everything by hand, everything on site, that makes them really unusual. You compare it to the rest of the industry, and there's got to be positives and negatives to that. I think the reason you say cult-like is people go, that's how it was done. They're not going for mass marketing, mass producing. They're kind of limiting themselves. Springbank could make, if they could double their production, they'd still sell out. That's the impression I get. So the fact that they're limiting themselves, again, shows that lack of greed, or just that authenticity, that old school Scottish style. Yeah,
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said sort of traditional. I think it's what people want to think of all whiskey distilleries being, as you said, everything done by hand, very small production. Obviously, as we know, that's not the case with everyone. There is something very kind of quaint and old-fashioned about Springbank, and I think that's part of the reason that sort of romantic idea of it is still the way whiskey was once upon a time.
Well, I think we should have a little taste and see what this is like, so I'll let you do the honours. Springbank as well, there's links to Cadden Heads, the independent bottler. I feel like it's one of those things that it all just ties into this really old school, traditional, and the problem is, we're a bit late to the party. Do you know? It's kind of the secret's out. Everybody already knows this stuff's great, which is why it's so hard to get. Especially at this age. I mean, I've certainly, I was lucky enough maybe to try their official 25 once before. But this stuff's a unicorn whiskey. You don't find Springbank at this age. In fact, even if you go to Cadden Heads now, who obviously are the ownership group who own Springbank, you're lucky if there's a 10-year-old sitting on the shelf.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're bang on. So getting to try something of this vintage, this kind of age range. Something truly special.
And so this was presumably a single cask from Samaroli. It doesn't actually say specifically single cask, but what it does say is it's one of 267 bottles. This one's bottled at 44% alcohol. So I'm really not sure what to anticipate here. I'm hoping it's going to be at this age a little bit more subtle, not too peaty and smoky, because that's not really my style. But I also would appreciate maybe a little dirty coastal Campbeltown is what people were looking for in this. So
Yeah, I think you would actually be disappointed if you didn't get it, even
okay.
just a touch of that. So
Yeah.
We'll
Cheers.
see how we go.
We'll see what we think. Okay. What do you think of the nose?
Well, yeah, I think it's a power of suggestion. You said dirty a second ago, and there is just something. Again, it doesn't sound appealing, but there isn't. Don't really have another word for it right now.
There is a real coastal minerality. There's maybe a little citrus there too. I'm not sure I'm not sure if it says the cask exactly, but I think it looks certainly like an American oak cask.
Yeah, you would sort of just guess
cask,
from the age and the colour.
I think that lines up correctly with the nose as well.
I think going back to it, there's a sort of touch of sweetness coming through.
If I've been really optimistic, I think there's a wee bit of mango in there. Now that sounds a bit mental, but there's a real kind of tropical element, right? Like there's a wee touch of fruitiness that for me is very specific, like juicy mango. They bite into it and it's just running down your face. Like I'm really.
So you've got me salivated.
I hope it sounds ridiculous. It is a Springbank whiskey, but I really, really like the nose. There's so many layers to it. Let's have a little taste. And tell me what you think.
Yeah, that's delightful. Very Moorish. I think that salinity is coming through quite a lot, and it's making me want to just sort of take another sip straight away.
Something I didn't really pick up on the nose, what the palate is the peat. It is actually has still retained a tasty smoky element.
Yeah.
Even at this age.
Yeah, quite earthy in a way. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's for me, it's like peaty, not smoky. There's like an earthy quality to it. But yeah, for me, it's that Moorish salinity, which, salinity is not a nice word, but it's the
No,
the
I
best way
get you.
to
I get you.
describe
It's really interesting. I mean, I can still taste my first sip. It's really a really long finish.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting because it's like, sometimes you have a whiskey that will have 1,000 sort of tasting notes all punching you in the face at the same time. Not really getting that with this, but it's what I am getting, for me, my money, thoroughly enjoyable. Yeah,
I think the nose for me had loads of layers to it, and the palate is unapologetic Springbank DNA. It is interesting. To me, it doesn't taste as old as it is.
Yeah.
I mean, totally honest, I wouldn't have, if I was blind tasting it, I wouldn't have said this was 25 plus years old. Maybe as the cask, has an influence in that too, because I think there's still a bit of life in this whiskey in the way that it's not very woody.
Yeah. I think that's always the danger, isn't it, when you get to over 18 sort of years, that it can go woody. It's not really.
No, it's still quite light and bright with that earthy, peaty palate. It's a really, really interesting whiskey. Yeah, the nose, I love the nose. Yeah,
so if we go back to the sort of peaty smokiness, it's interesting because it's not so peaty that it would put off people who aren't fans of that style, but also people who are, that's their favourite. Yeah. It might not appeal to them either. It is like a nice sort of somewhere in the middle. I'm okay to admit that I'm not a great lover of peated whiskies, but probably because this has dissipated over time, I get that it's still got that traditional Campbeltown style peat. It's not an Isla peat. It's not big and heavy and in your face and bellowing smoke. But that's quite welcoming to me. I actually quite like that. It's a really interesting whiskey. I feel really lucky to get to try it today. So did it meet your expectations then? You said you were coming into this expecting a lot. Yeah, I think it did. Do you know, I think there's a whiskey I'll probably be talking about for some time. So amazing. Thanks for sharing it with me. Cheers.